hospital technically closed 2 years before I got hired. Most of the upper floors were empty except for storage, old equipment, and a few departments nobody seemed responsible for anymore. During orientation, the supervisor handed me a ring of keys and told me not to worry if the elevator stopped at the 4th floor by itself. He said it the same way someone might warn you about a flickering light. His name was Gerald. He wore a lanyard with 3 expired badges clipped to it and had the posture of a man who'd been tired for so long it had become structural. He walked me through the ground floor, showed me the security desk, the monitors, the logbook. He pointed at the coffee machine in the break room and said it worked about 60% of the time. I'd later find out that was generous. Most nights it just made a grinding sound, and then the little red light would blink and nothing came out. You'd press the button again, wait, press it again, and eventually just drink water from the fountain by the east stairwell, which tasted like copper pipes no matter how long you let it run. Gerald handed me the schedule and told me my shift was 11 to 7, Sunday through Thursday. The key ring was heavier than I expected. 15 or 16 keys, most of them unlabeled. Gerald pointed out 3 that mattered. Side entrance, security desk drawer, electrical closet on 5, and said the rest were legacy. I asked what they opened. He said, probably nothing anymore. I carried them on my belt, and the weight pulled my pants slightly to the right for 3 years. I never did figure out what most of them were for. One of them was cut wrong and didn't fit anything I ever tried it on, but it stayed on the ring because nobody told me to take it off. I asked him what happened on the 4th floor. He looked at me the way you look at someone who asks why the vending machine in the lobby only takes quarters. Like the question was fine, but also beside the point. Nothing happens on the 4th floor, he said. That's the whole point. I didn't push it. I needed the job. I'd been out of work for 4 months and the pay was decent for overnight security. The posting said monitoring and facility patrol, which I understood to mean walking around an empty building and trying not to fall asleep. I'd done warehouse security before. I knew how to be alone in a building for 8 hours. Or I thought I did. The first few weeks were exactly what I expected. The hospital was a mid-size facility, 5 floors, built sometime in the 70s and renovated once in the 90s with the kind of budget that only covered new carpet and a repainted lobby. The carpet was the tight institutional kind, dark maroon, the color chosen specifically so stains wouldn't show. It smelled like dust and the underside of furniture. Most of the ground floor was still semi-functional. There was a records department that operated during the day, a small administrative office with a sign that still said admissions, even though there hadn't been admissions in years, and a maintenance crew that came in 3 times a week. There was also a department on the ground floor labeled Patient Services Coordination on the door, but I never saw anyone go in or come out, and the light inside was always off. I assumed it was storage. I never checked. It wasn't on the round. The 2nd and 3rd floors were storage. Old beds, filing cabinets, boxes of supplies with expiration dates from 2016, 2017. The 5th floor was mechanical. HVAC units, water systems, electrical panels. I checked it once a night. The stairwell up to 5 always smelled different than the rest of the building, something metallic, like warm wiring. You got used to it after a few weeks, and then you stopped noticing you'd gotten used to it. The 4th floor was on my patrol route. It was listed on the schedule Gerald gave me, but the note next to it just said, "Visual check from stairwell landing." Not a full walkthrough. Just open the stairwell door, look down the hallway, close the door. I did it the first night without thinking much about it. Opened the door, looked down the hall. Fluorescent lights on, which I thought was strange since nobody was supposed to be up there. The hallway looked like every other hospital hallway. Linoleum floor, handrails along the walls, doors on both sides. a nurse's station about halfway down with a computer monitor on standby. Climate control was running. I could hear the vents. The air smelled faintly like antiseptic, which shouldn't have been notable, except that the rest of the building smelled like dust and old carpet and that metallic stairwell smell, and near the loading dock, something I never identified. Dennis later told me it was the dumpster seal. I don't know if that was true. I closed the door, finished my rounds, wrote it in the log. 4th floor visual check, no issues. The security desk chair had one bad wheel. It pulled to the left when you rolled back and made a clicking sound every rotation. The desk itself was standard: monitors, logbook, a phone that only called 4 numbers, listed on a laminated card taped to the receiver. 3 of the numbers were disconnected. The 4th went to an answering machine for a facilities management company that, as far as I could tell, no longer held the contract. I tried it once during my 2nd week because a pipe was dripping on the 3rd floor. Nobody ever called back. Dennis told me to just put a bucket under it. That's what he did. The bucket was still there when I left 3 years later. The 2nd night, same thing. Lights on, hallway empty, vents humming, monitor glowing. I noticed a clipboard hanging on the wall near the nurse's station. Hadn't been there the 1st night, or it had, and I didn't see it. Hard to say. Those hallways all looked the same after a while. Same lights, same floor, same handrails. Same doors with the same small windows you can't really see through because they're that textured safety glass. By the end of the 1st week, I'd stopped paying close attention to the 4th floor check. It became like everything else. The coffee machine, the flickering light in stairwell B. 3 quick flickers. Pause, 1 long flicker, pause. Every night, same pattern. The elevator stopping between floors for a few seconds before continuing. The supply closet on the 2nd floor that wouldn't latch right, so the door always drifted open about 2 inches by the time you came back around. I'd close it, walk the rest of the floor, and next round it'd be open again. I stopped closing it after the 1st month. It wasn't on the checklist. Nobody had asked me to close it. It was just a door that didn't latch. I met the other guards gradually. There were 4 of us, total, rotating shifts to cover the week. Dennis had been there the longest, almost 5 years. He was in his late 50s, quiet, read paperback westerns at the security desk, and kept a thermos of soup he'd heat in the break room microwave at exactly 2 a.m. He had opinions about the microwave. Said it heated unevenly, and you had to stop it at 45 seconds and stir, or the middle stayed cold. He told me this 3 separate times in my 1st month. The 3rd time he started to tell me again and then stopped and said, "I already told you this." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay." Then he went back to his book. We sat there for a few minutes not saying anything while he waited for shift change. Carla worked weekends. She was younger than me, maybe 25, and had a 2nd job at a call center during the day. She slept through most of her shifts. She'd set alarms for her rounds and do them half awake, then go back to the break room couch. Once I came in and she was still asleep, and I knocked on the break room door, and she got up and said, "Payroll's late again," and walked past me. I said something like, "Again," and she was already at the side entrance putting her coat on and didn't answer. Or didn't hear me. One of those. Ray covered my days off. I only saw him during shift changes. He never said more than necessary. Weather, the parking lot gate, whether the printer in the admin office was jamming again, which it always was. The printer was an old laser jet that pulled paper crooked and jammed every 15 or 20 pages. Nobody used it regularly, except whoever processed the maintenance request forms, which were triplicate carbon copy forms that you were also supposed to log digitally on the admin computer. But the admin computer ran Windows XP, and the login credentials were written on a sticky note on the monitor that said, "User, Facility 1, pass, Facility 1, and the software it used hadn't been updated since 2011. Most people just filled out the carbon copies and left them in a tray on the admin desk. The tray was always about half full. I don't know who collected them or how often. None of them talked about the fourth floor. Not in a way that felt like avoidance. More like it wasn't interesting to them. Dennis talked about his soup, the Western he was reading, his daughter's car problems, the microwave, the second-floor bathroom faucet that ran unless you cranked the handle hard left. He'd talk about all of that. The fourth floor just wasn't in the rotation. About 6 weeks in, I was doing my 1 a.m. round when the elevator opened on the fourth floor while I was on the third. I hadn't pressed the button. I heard the chime and the door sliding open. I was in the stairwell between 3 and 4. I stopped. The doors stayed open for maybe 15 seconds. Then they closed. The elevator went back down. I stood there for a second. Then I kept going. I think I was thinking about the east wing door I still had to check. Or maybe I wasn't thinking about anything. Sometimes on rounds your brain just goes quiet and your legs do the work. When I got to the fourth floor landing, I opened the stairwell door and looked down the hallway. Same as always. Lights, linoleum, vents. But this time there was a meal tray on the nurse's station counter. A plastic tray, institutional, with a covered plate and a small carton of juice. Like it came from a cafeteria that didn't exist anymore. I looked at it. Then I closed the door. The vending machine in the lobby, by the way. That thing ate quarters constantly. I lost probably $40 to it over 3 years. Dennis said you could submit a refund request through facilities, but the form required a supervisor signature, and the form itself was a photocopy of a photocopy, and half the fields were for departments that didn't exist anymore. There was a line for requesting department code, and nobody knew what the codes were. The reference sheet for the codes was supposed to be in a binder in the admin office, but the binder only had pages up to 2013. I mentioned the meal tray to Dennis the next morning during the shift change. I said, "Has maintenance been leaving stuff on 4?" He was packing up his thermos. He said, "Sometimes things show up. Facilities handles it." Then he asked about the parking lot gate. It was sticking again. The badge reader sensor only worked if you held the badge at an angle that nobody could reliably reproduce. Ray said maintenance had been looking into it for 2 years. I let it go. Over the next few months, I settled into the job. Your body learns the schedule before you decide to learn it. I'd wake up around 9, eat whatever was in the fridge, drive to the hospital, park in the same spot, 3rd row, under the light that worked. Because the other lot lights were on a timer that nobody had set correctly, so they shut off at 10 p.m., an hour before my shift started. I'd walk in through the side entrance, check the monitors, start my first round at 11:30. Same hallways every time. Same sounds. The HVAC on 5 had a specific pitch, higher than the other floors. The second-floor stairwell door echoed differently when the weather changed. Something about air pressure, Dennis said. Or maybe he said humidity. I don't remember which. The elevator cycled through floors at night on some automatic schedule. I think it was every 40 minutes. I timed it once and then forgot the number. Same smells in the same places. Dust and old carpet on 2 and 3. The metallic warmth in the stairwell to 5. Antiseptic on 4. The loading dock smell. The break room always smelled faintly like Dennis's soup, regardless of whether he'd been there that night. It had soaked into the furniture or the walls or something. I stopped questioning the elevator. It moved when it moved. Gerald had said the system ran on a maintenance cycle nobody reprogrammed. That was enough. Didn't need to be airtight, just needed to be a sentence. The meal trays kept appearing, not every night, maybe twice a week. Same counter, same covered plate, same juice carton. They were always gone by 4 a.m. I logged it the first few times. Then I stopped. It was just information that didn't require action. The log was for things that required action. I don't remember deciding that. It just became how I used the log. One night around month 3, I was at the security desk staring at the monitors. 6 screens, empty hallways, empty parking lot, nothing. And I noticed there were no cameras on the 4th floor. 6 feeds, lobby, parking lot, loading dock, 2nd floor hallway, 3rd floor hallway, 5th floor mechanical. No 4th. I checked the wiring panel. 8 camera hookups. 2 disconnected. 4F-east and 4F-west. The cables were cut, not unplugged, cut clean. I mentioned it to Gerald. He was doing paperwork for the parking lot gate. He didn't look up. 4th floor cameras have been down since before I started. Budget never approved replacements. The cables are cut, I said. Probably during renovation, he said. Then he asked me to sign the maintenance request as a witness. I signed it. There was a line on the form for priority level, and the options were routine, urgent, and critical. But somebody had written standard in pen over routine, and it wasn't clear if that was an official change or just someone who didn't like the word routine. I checked standard because that's what Gerald checked. I want to be clear about something. I wasn't piecing clues together. I wasn't suspicious. I was working overnight security at a mostly empty building for $14 an hour. I was tired. I listened to podcasts. I ate gas station sandwiches at 3 a.m. I thought about whether I should get my CDL or go back to school or just keep doing this because the checks cleared. The 4th floor was a line on a checklist. It was unusual. But unusual stops being unusual after enough repetitions. It just becomes the job. You adjust without noticing. That's the honest version. You stop hearing certain sounds. You stop seeing certain things as strange. Not because you decide to. It just happens. The meal trays, the elevator, the lights, they became the same as the supply closet door on 2 that wouldn't latch, or the copper taste in the water, or the chair that pulled left. Just stuff about the building. Around month 5, I noticed the paperwork in the records department on the ground floor. I passed through it every round. It was on the way to the east stairwell. 2 desks, filing cabinets, a computer with a screensaver I think was the old Windows Pipes one, but I never looked closely enough to be sure. But there were always new files on one of the desks. Manila folders, room numbers starting with 4, 412, 419, 406. Dates were current. I opened one once. Single sheet. Printed form, patient status update. Most fields empty. Room number, date and at the bottom. Status, continuing. No patient name, no doctor, no diagnosis. Just continuing. I put it back, did my round, wrote records department, no issues. It wasn't really a decision. The folder wasn't part of the round. The round was doors and hallways and stairwells and the visual check. That was mine. The folders were somebody else's. Facilities, probably. Or records. Or whoever was supposed to be handling whatever was being handled on the 4th floor. Not my department. I just did the rounds. That's around when Dennis told me about his daughter's transmission. It was going out, and the repair estimate was more than the car was worth, and he was trying to figure out the credit union loan situation. He talked about it for 20 minutes during the shift change. A PR, mileage, whether to fix or buy used. Normal stuff. Most of the job was normal stuff. There was a clock in the break room that ran about 4 minutes fast. Nobody fixed it. You just knew it was 4 minutes fast. Except sometimes it seemed like it was 5 minutes fast, or 3, and you couldn't tell if it was drifting or if you were miscounting. I mentioned it to Ray once and he said, "Yeah, that clock's been wrong since I started." He didn't say how long he'd been there, and I didn't ask. Month 7, I was doing my 2 a.m. round, and the stairwell door to the fourth floor was open. It was always closed. Every night, I'd open it, look, close it, but that night it was propped open with a rubber doorstop. Beige, wedge-shaped, scuffed. Same hallway, lights, linoleum, nurse's station. Vents humming the way they always hummed on 4, slightly different pitch than the other floors, maybe a half-tone higher, though I'm not sure I'd have described it that way at the time. I just knew it sounded different. There was someone at the far end, a woman, dark blue scrubs, clipboard, writing. She didn't look up. I stood there. Not long. Then I closed the door, took the doorstop, put it in the stairwell corner, and continued my round. Didn't put it in the log. The log format was location status. 4th floor visual check, no issues. A woman writing on a clipboard didn't fit the format. It wasn't an issue. She wasn't doing anything. She was just there. Gerald would have asked if she was unauthorized. I would have said I don't know. He would have asked if I confronted her. I would have said no. And then what? Nothing. Same round tomorrow night. Same hallway. So I left it out. Easier that way. Not easy, just easier. Next night, door closed. Night after that, closed. Same hallway smell. Same vents. Meal tray at 1 a.m., gone by 4. Elevator on its cycle. Stairwell B-light doing its pattern. 3 quick, pause, 1 long. I'd started counting the flickers without meaning to. Like the way you count stairs. I saw the woman 2 more times over the next month, always at the far end. Always scrubs, clipboard. She had an ID badge, but I was too far away to read it. 3rd time, there was a man with her in maintenance coveralls, pushing a linen cart, clean linens, folded. I told Carla about it. Shift change, I said, "Have you seen people on 4? She was plugging in her phone. She said, "Yeah, sometimes there's staff up there, overnight program or something, I think. Dennis would know." Then she said, "Did they fix the—" And I said, "No." I knew she was going to ask about the badge reader. She always asked about the badge reader. I never asked Dennis. Not because I was afraid to. More that I'd stopped. I don't know. I'd stopped having the impulse to ask. It went away at some point. I couldn't tell you when. Like the supply closet door. I closed it for a while, and then one day I just walked past it, and it didn't occur to me to close it. Same kind of thing. I'm skipping around. I know that. The months blur because the shifts were so similar. I remember things, but I can't always put them in order. The paperwork might have been before the woman or after. There was a week where the elevator made a different sound when it stopped on 4, more of a thud than a chime. And then it went back to normal. And I don't remember if that was month 6 or month 9. It doesn't matter. It stopped doing it. Oh, the squeaky cart. There was a supply cart on the 3rd floor, metal that someone used to restock the maintenance closets. It had a wheel that squeaked, a high-pitched rhythmic squeak. And sometimes during rounds, I'd hear it from a floor away through the stairwell. I never saw who was pushing it. It happened maybe once a week. I stopped writing it down because what would I write? Heard cart. It was a building. Buildings have carts, month 11, maybe 10. Something was different, but I don't have a better way to describe it than that. Not an event. The building just felt, I keep wanting to say present, but I don't know what I mean by that exactly. The sounds were the same. HVAC, elevator, vents, stairwell light. Same sounds every night, same sequence, same timing. I'd hear the elevator chime and know where I was on my route without checking. I'd hear the HVAC cycle on 5 and know it was time to head back down. My rounds were taking the same amount of time, exactly the same. I timed it once, 47 minutes. Timed it again, 47. Same route, same speed, same doors. Made sense. That's just how long it takes to walk through a building the same way every night. Dennis asked me during a shift change if I was settling in. I said yeah. He nodded. Then he said the microwave magnetron might be going and explained what a magnetron was. He seemed genuinely worried about it, more than I'd seen him worry about anything. I don't mean anything by that. The microwave was part of his shift. The soup was at 2 a.m. If the microwave died, his whole routine shifted. I was the same way about certain things. The coffee machine working or not working determined whether I'd make the walk to the east stairwell fountain, which added 4 minutes to the first half of my shift. I started keeping a water bottle at the desk so I wouldn't have to make the walk. Small adjustment. I don't remember deciding to do it. It just started happening. One night, I'm not sure when, 14 months in maybe, I noticed my handwriting in the logbook was neater than before. More even. I flipped back a few pages and compared. The early ones were messier. I closed the logbook and went to check the monitors. Parking lot, empty. Lobby, empty. Same 6 feeds. Year 2. Gerald stopped coming in. Dennis said he wouldn't be handling the site anymore. Didn't say why. There was a form in the break room with a new supervisor's name, updated emergency contacts, a printed sheet with new procedures for incident reporting, though the procedures looked identical to the old ones, except the header said Reverend 3 instead of Reverend 2, and one of the phone numbers had a different area code. I never met the new supervisor. She emailed once about updating our certifications. I replied. She never responded. I noticed around this time that I'd started standing a certain way at the security desk. Weight on one foot, arms crossed. I didn't think about it. Month 18, I trained a new guard. Alex, 22. Talked a lot. Reminded me of, I don't know, someone less tired. He asked a lot of questions. What's on each floor? Why are the lights on up there? What's that sound? Is the elevator supposed to do that? Normal questions. The questions you'd ask. I showed him the rounds, the monitors, the logbook, told him the coffee machine was unreliable. Told him the vending machine took your money. Told him the chair pulled left. When we got to the 4th floor stairwell, I opened the door, looked down the hallway. Lights, linoleum, vents, same as every night for 18 months. And closed it. He said, "What's up there?" "Nothing," I said. "Just do the visual check." He started to ask something else, and I was already walking toward the 5th floor stairwell, not deliberately cutting him off. Just, the round had a pace and I was in it. Alex lasted 3 weeks. He left his badge on the desk with a sticky note that said, "Sorry." Carla said he told her the building felt wrong. Ray said, "Some people aren't cut out for nights." He was fiddling with the gate sensor when he said it. The new sensor had been installed 2 months earlier and was already sticking in the cold. Patrice replaced him. Quiet, showed up on time, did her rounds, kept the log updated. Never asked about the 4th floor. She was good at this. Year 2 was when the PA system started. It had been decommissioned. Speakers still mounted, but system disconnected. It said so on the facility sheet, which was laminated and taped to the inside of the security desk drawer, along with a fire evacuation plan from 2009 and a sheet titled Emergency Contacts that listed a pager number. A pager. But some nights between 3 and 4 a.m., I'd hear a faint sound through the ceiling speakers. Not words. A 2-note chime, the kind that plays before a PA announcement. Then something too quiet to make out, like a voice at the end of a very long hallway. Dennis said old wiring picks up interference. Radio signals. CB, building has a lot of copper in the walls. Yeah, I said. Probably. The PA chimes became part of the night. Same as the elevator. Same as the HVAC. Same as stairwell B background. Sometime during year 2, I realized I hadn't taken a sick day since I started. Hadn't been late. Hadn't requested a schedule change. I went to work, did the shift, went home. Same food, same route, same spot in the lot. Rounds at 11:30, 12:17, 1, 2:30, 4. I didn't set alarms. My body just went. I ate lunch, or whatever you call a meal, at 2:30 a.m., at the same time every night. I'd started bringing soup in a thermos. I don't remember when I started doing that. Dennis did it. Then I did it. There wasn't a conversation about it. I wasn't unhappy. I want to say that. The job was fine. I was the best employee I'd been anywhere, probably. Showed up, did the work, kept the log, never complained. I don't know what that means. It just happened. Ray got the gate sensor replaced. Took almost 2 years. Worked for a month. Started sticking again. He submitted another maintenance request. The form still had the old department codes on it. Year 3. I started dreaming about the 4th floor. Not nightmares. Just the hallway. Doors open, beds in rooms, shapes in beds. I never looked at the shapes directly. I'd do the round in the dream and wake up feeling like I'd already started the shift. Some mornings I wasn't sure which I was remembering. The dream, or the last shift, or a shift from weeks ago. They all looked the same. I'd catch myself doing things. Waiting before walking through doorways. 3 seconds every time, even at home. Standing with my weight on one foot facing the exit. Organizing things in my kitchen the way I organized the security desk. Logbook perpendicular, pen parallel, phone on the left. I didn't decide to do any of that. Around month 30, I stepped onto the 4th floor landing for the first time since my first week. 1 step past the door. Not into the hallway, just the landing. The air was cooler. Antiseptic smell stronger than the hallway draft you got from the stairwell. The nurse's station had 2 active monitors now. Vital signs, heart rates, oxygen levels. 7 sets per screen, 14 total. The woman was there, halfway down. She looked up. We made eye contact. She nodded, the kind of nod you give someone in the hallway at work. I nodded. Stepped back, closed the door, finished the round. 47 minutes. Wrote in the log. 4th floor visual check complete. No issues. 14 active patient monitors in a closed hospital, and I wrote, no issues. Not because I was lying, because it wasn't an issue. An issue would be a broken window or a water leak, something that required action, a form, a call to the disconnected facilities number. The vital signs didn't require action. They were just there. Facilities handles it, or someone does. Not my department. That word. Continuing. From the files. I noticed it, but I didn't do anything with the noticing. It was just a word on a form. Month 35. I was at the desk around 3 a.m. The PA chime had just played. I started flipping back through the logbook. I don't know why. Maybe because it was there. 8 years of entries. Different handwriting, different names. Same content. Rounds complete, no issues. 4th floor visual check, no issues. Elevator cycled standard. Page after page. Nobody had ever reported anything unusual. Not the meal trays, not the PA chimes, not the woman, not the files. 8 years. I closed the binder. The round was due. I stood up and started walking. I left at 36 months. I woke up one morning and I don't know how to explain this without it sounding bigger than it was. I was standing in my kitchen and I realized I was holding a thermos and I didn't remember taking it out of the cabinet. My grocery list on the fridge was organized by location in the store, same way I organized rounds by floor. I'd been checking my apartment windows at night in the same order I checked the east wing. I put in 2 weeks' notice. The email approval came back in 8 minutes. My last shift was the same as every other shift. Rounds, logbook, monitors. Coffee machine didn't work. Red light, grinding sound. Nothing. I drank the copper water from the east stairwell fountain. 4th floor, last time. Opened the door. Hallway lit, vents humming, meal tray on the counter. The woman at the far end with her clipboard. She didn't look up. I stood there for 10 seconds. Maybe less. Then I closed the door. Finished the round. Wrote no issues. Put the pen down perpendicular to the binder's spine, cap on. Walked out through the side entrance. Dennis is still there. Carla, Patrice, they're doing their rounds right now probably. Same hallways, same doors, same log. The 4th floor is still lit. The elevator still goes there. The meal trays still appear and disappear. The vital signs still scroll on monitors nobody ordered. It continues. It's been 3 months. I wake up at 11:15 every night. No alarm. I just wake up. I lie there for a minute, and then I get up, because lying there feels like being late. I check the front door, the windows, the back door. I stand in the kitchen. The microwave clock says 11:30. I don't start walking, but my legs feel like they should be walking. I take the elevator in my building now. I didn't used to, but I stand in front of the doors and I wait for the chime, and the doors open, and I step in, and I wait a second before pressing 3. My apartment is on the 3rd floor. Sometimes my hand goes to the 4 button first. I don't press it. I just notice my hand there, and then I press 3. I make soup, sit at the table. The building is quiet except for the pipes and the vent above the stove. I eat the soup, rinse the thermos, put it back in the cabinet. I should probably go to bed. I have a dentist appointment in the morning. I keep rescheduling it. I've been rescheduling it for about a year. Anyway,